Hi, I'm Pauline, and you're watching Pauline Interviews. Today I'm interviewing a good friend of mine, Laurie McQuary, who's a psychic, and she's done many interviews with me. She has a business here in Lake Oswego, Oregon, called Management by Intuition. And I want to thank you, Laurie. You're always up for doing interviews, and this is going to be a very interesting one. I've never talked to anybody about this topic before, and I want the people watching to know that we're talking about crystal children. I'll let you explain. What is a crystal child?
Well, a crystal child is an enlightened child who has been here many, many times before, but they've come in with a special mission, you might say. And the accompaniment to that is that these children have a specific aura, which is the electrical magnetic field around every living thing. So if a person were capable of seeing their aura, and many people are, you can learn to, the aura is a crystalline. The behavior of these children is very gentle. We don't have anybody coming in as a crystal child who wants to be a rock star about metaphysics out in front of the cameras and to do all kinds, of spectacular kind of work. They're here to gently lay the path for us to live better, to live in better harmony and balance, and they bring old wisdom.
Now, I did a little research, and I know they have, some of them have specific characteristics, maybe not all of them, but one that was predominant was they have large, penetrating eyes. They look at you with such wisdom. And I think there were, have you read that?
Yeah, and I've experienced it. Yeah, and well, in the old days, why, the Irish used to call it the look of the knowing.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. I have Irish ancestors too, and I heard that, and I thought, wow, what a neat way to put that.
I love it.
And if you pay attention to people who are able to do this kind of work do have a depth and clarity to their eyes that you will not see with anyone else.
I always notice people's eyes first, I'll say, oh, you could.
Well, the eye is the window to the soul.
That's
That's
right.
always good to know.
Yeah.
But as far as children, I've, even when they're first born, kids like that come out not only kicking, but the eyes will just hold you. They'll look at you, and it's an incredible experience.
Yeah, I won't even go into some of the things I read in this book, how these little babies were healing their parents.
Yeah.
Another one that could be disturbing is that some of these children, I read, don't begin speaking until they're maybe 2 or 3.
Yes, I don't think that's with every case. But
one of
unfortunately, as you know, this gets misinterpreted.
Yes.
And of course, everybody today is running towards diagnoses and let's get the kid to the clinic and let's figure out what's wrong. I can remember when my children were little, not my kids, but other kids around their age, the kids hadn't spoken and they were 2, understood perfectly, didn't, have tantrums or bad stuff you'd worry about. They just didn't want to talk. And then always, they'd come through it, and by age 4 or 5, at least going to school, they'd start talking.
There could be several reasons, but one I was reading about is these kids are more spiritually advanced, and so they don't need to speak, they use telepathy.
They tried.
They tried to use telepathy.
I don't know how many people are picking it up, but
No.
that is true. They do that. But you can't miss them, even if you didn't know anything about a metaphysical twist to this. You'd be saying to your neighbor, did you ever notice that kid next door? God, there's something about her. You would know.
They're loving, they're
They're
affectionate.
loving and gentle and
souls.
serene. When you're in their presence, you don't feel that jagged attention getting stuff that most kids are about.
The ego's not there.
Just quiet.
And I read they're fearless too, I think, and now I'm reading this, but I know you've studied it too, but I haven't done that much research. They're fearless because, from what I understand, heaven protects them because they are special little beings.
Well, I think that's in part, and I'm not trying to be
No, that's okay, play devil's advocate.
going,
really.
but I haven't read tons and tons about it. I've experienced it. I knew one of the author of Indigo Children, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But I think everybody who tries to walk the spiritual path has a special protection.
I agree. So when I was reading about the special things, telepathic, even-tempered, sweet, forgiving, highly sensitive, empathic,
Right.
when somebody's hurting, they want to go and
Do you know what is sad here? is when I read for people who have been crystal children and didn't know it.
Oh, tell us about that, because
I can remember 2 or 3 that I've met, women usually, although one was a man. And as children, they were shared with me and they said, we knew all this stuff, da-da-da, didn't have anybody around who would listen or who understood. So they pushed it way down.
Yeah.
And as they grew to adulthood, then when they were out on their own, then they allowed it to open up and they became much more an adult crystal child.
well, that's why we're doing this interview now, so that people will understand there are such people, there are such children.
Absolutely.
And one of the parts we're going to do in part 3 is how to deal, if you have a crystal child, if you think you do, or if you're one, how to handle it, you know, because they need special nurturing, but we'll talk about that later. Now, you brought up the word indigo, so crystal describes their aura, so there are other children or even adults that are indigo, and that describes their aura, which is blue, or
Right.
it's a type of blue.
The indigo child, as you know, is different in a lot of ways. I mean, the purpose is still very, very parallel. And it's the purpose of being here on the earth plane and to opening up spheres of understanding about this, how we can work with it, how can people tap their own energies for that.
Maybe they'd be more the activist.
Well, I was just gonna say,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay, no, you're right. The indigo child is more of the punch 'em, get out,
Yeah.
not punch, but you know,
Yeah.
get out there and this is what I do, this is who I am. I think of, and I'm not a favorite actor of mine, but the kind of the Tom Cruise energy,
Yes.
you know, that little short guy that just
Yeah.
goes,
Or Jane
I know
Fonda,
what I'm
maybe?
doing. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
Jane's a
boom.
good example.
And, you know, you can't miss them. The crystal children can sit in the side of the room, but
Yeah.
the indigo kid is gonna come tearing through the front door and go, here I am.
Well, I can see the difference in that the crystal child sets by example, whereas the indigo child says, you know, wakes you up, opens your
Good way to put
consciousness.
it.
Yeah, opens your
Perfect.
consciousness, yeah.
Yep, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So there are certain characteristics, and it's good to recognize them when you see them, because you understand what's going on and you understand
Yeah.
how to help that.
Well, I want to amend the thing on the indigo kids, because I don't want to give the interpretation that perhaps they're troublesome.
Oh, yeah,
and
or
that
warlike, they're not.
Peaceful warriors
Yes,
is what
yes.
I would call them.
Mhm.
Peaceful
Well,
warriors.
they're kind of like Mother Teresa. She said, I won't march for against war, but I will march for peace.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, exactly.
that's a pretty good example.
Good.
So we were talking about a book we both read, and it's a beautiful book that we want to mention it, The Boy Who Saw True, and he was truly a crystal child back in the 1700s.
1700s. This,
Uh-huh.
people can find this, go online, go to Amazon or
Wonderful
whatever.
book.
And it's actually a compilation of a diary that this young man kept all of his life, because he came in being able to see auras and know things, as you know we talk about,
Yes.
and he didn't have anybody to turn to. But dear God, this was in the 1700s. They were gathering firewood and
And he could be burned at the stake.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
what you're
You know,
saying,
there's
right?
firewood
A little
over
slow.
here and a big lighter. That's what I
Yeah.
always joke and say that they're still carrying that. But he had at least a couple pair that people that
Yes.
were at least listening and, you know, not trying to make fun of him or to go keep quiet about that.
No, they actually promoted him
Yeah.
and recognized it, which is great. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about.
So it's a good book.
Okay.
You can get a hold of it.
Okay, we're going to keep this short and sweet.
Okay.
Is there anything else we want to say about crystals? We just know that they've been coming onto this planet
I
for
just,
many.
if you're lucky enough to have a child
Yes.
who is a crystal
Yes.
child, it changes your life forever. My son, I believe, was a crystal child, and still he's a crystal adult today.
He's a crystal
But
adult.
he's got this incredible peaceful side, metaphysical side, and yet he's a martial artist in the purest form. So always full of wisdom,
Yes.
always full of wonderful wisdom.
Thanks for watching Pauline Interviews, and we're going to be back with part 2, and we're going to talk about why are these beautiful souls incarnating. And I thought they'd only started doing it since '95, but I trust my friend Laurie, and she says no, they've been coming in for many years. So join us again, watch for Pauline Interviews. Thank you.